Well, hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre. Today on the show, Courttia Newland with his new short story collection, Cosmogramma. Courttia was on the show before to present his amazing novel, A River Called Time, one of my favorite novels of 2021. Well, I think it was published in 2020, but I read it in 2021. Anyways, the short stories that Courttia is presenting us now are equally amazing. It's basically 15 immersive worlds of speculative fiction, near future stuff, man machine type things. Well, we'll talk to him about it. I don't want to spoil too much. And also, since I read the book back in February when Courttia was originally scheduled, and then he got COVID and we had to postpone to today, I have to consult my trusted notebook that I brought along. Look at this. This is my notebook because I don't remember what I read 3 months ago. I mean, I'm a host of a book program. No, I'm just kidding. The favorite story is You Meets You, where a drug addict meets his 9-year-old self. Amazing story. The story Seed, basically invasion of the body snatchers, but a little bleaker, if you can believe me. There's gentrification, the issue of gentrification thrown in. There's very pandemic centric stuff at times. Dark Matters, an amazing story that Courttia will read in possibly in its entirety. The Sankofa principle, where space and time is disrupted, where Courttia goes into a little bit of hard sci-fi. The question of changing the past, is changing the past important? Now that there's a story where aliens um, are possibly present at 10 Downing Street. That's the only story that is not fictional. Then we have what else here? I'm consulting my notes. Zero Stratus. Oh yeah, this is a great story about a man-machine hybrid, kind of a future version maybe of Freak Show, that the movie by Todd Browning from the 30s. This man-machine theme goes through a lot. Scarecrow is an amazing story. Cosmogramma, the title story, is about children that can bend reality through singing. They want to free themselves through this from militarism, from the adult world. The adult world has failed them. I see another kind of a COVID centric theme here. But anyway, let's go inside. Oh yeah, where are we, by the way? First of all, why am I wearing this weird rope? This is a rope. I have to take off this rope because this rope was made for next week. This is the Cult of the Cactus Boot rope. I'm sorry. You'll get to enjoy this next week. I'm not going to say anything else about that rope. Um, Now, where are we? Let's have the camera zoom back. Oh, I just lost my entire frontal body. I have to get my body back. Where is my body? Oh boy. Here we go. If the camera can zoom back a little bit, because this is also my favorite build um, on the book club archipelago. This is the Ark, which is a sort of a riff on Courttia's book, A River Called Time, which I highly recommend. And A River Called Time is happens mostly inside a enclosed city where 5 million people live. That's called the Ark, sort of a private public partnership that then sort of descends in neoliberal as a neoliberal hellhole, basically the physical version of Twitter. Okay, that's I just sorry, my book writer is on vacation. Let's go inside and meet Courttia Newland, the author of many, many books, including Cosmogramma. Look at this, a full house. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Delia Lake, Jamunki, the Panthers, Rick Harch, Vanderveer, Damn, so many people. And here's Courttia. Hello, Courttia. How are you?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you for having me back.
You had COVID.
I did.
Briefly, how was that?
It wasn't great. Put it that way. It wasn't great at all. I was saying it lasted me 5 weeks. So yeah, I had a real tussle with it, and
Are
we all
you,
got it.
oh, the whole family? Like
Yeah,
two
the whole
kids?
house got it. Yeah, we all got it at the same time, or like me and Shamila got it at the same time. Who's my wife, and then the kids got it like when we got better. Yeah, so it was like
Wow.
a month of COVID in our house.
Let me briefly say hello to the folks on YouTube that are not in world. Kitten Duo, thanks for tuning in, Kitten. We missed you a couple weeks ago, I think. Hope you're doing good. Cody is on the YouTube, and a bunch of people who are in both worlds, Roxy and um, Mrs. Vanderveer. No, this is actually Petra. I'm sorry. Courttia, I perceived some of the stories in the book Cosmogramma.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. Maybe it's because we're living in the COVID era that
Yeah.
I'm inferring that. But there was a COVID undertone in a lot of these stories. Was that
It's
intended?
No, definitely not, because they were written way, way before. Like I had finished Cosmogramma before I finished The River Called Time.
Whoa.
So a lot of these stories were finished in like 2014.
Wow.
But they just didn't come out. It was meant to come out in 2014, and then it didn't happen. Nikesh Shukla said to me one day, "You've been teasing this collection for like nearly a decade, you know what I mean?" And basically, it never came out in 2014. And then I took that opportunity to write new stories, revise and polish up the old ones. I think maybe even one or two got dropped from that original collection. There was a prequel to River Called Time that got dropped. I know that the original collection had a novella that was set in the world of A River Called Time, and I've still got that. Like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that. But yeah, and then I reshaped it and stuff, and it became the Cosmogramma that we've got here. But all of those stories were written before the pandemic, every single one.
No, I kind of sort of just threw out some of those
Mm.
ideas and worlds and plot points on from my notepad. Here's one Percipi that there's robots. They're mounting a revolution with the help of some humans. These are sort of service robots. The
Mm.
man machine theme. How would you? Oh yeah, and then these arthropod rulers. They breed humans.
Yeah.
How would you, if I ask, I meet you on the street, so what's that short story collection about? You're
Yeah.
the pitch man, the 15-second elevator
Oh
pitch.
my gosh,
20
it's
seconds.
funny. I don't generally do them. I have a film script. I had a big meeting for a film script that I was writing yesterday, and I suddenly realized that I had not written an elevator pitch. So I had to. I've been working on this
So
film.
honestly, because I do this sort of tongue in cheek, because I heard that when I lived in California, heard
Yeah,
that all the time. So
yeah,
you
so
actually have to do that. That's part of the thing, right?
yeah,
For your
yeah,
television work, at
yeah.
least.
I had to do a log line, which is a two-line pitch, but and I didn't use it. I didn't use it in the meeting at all. That which is funny, but you do have to have one, just for when you're sending the scripts out, that people can read them. They don't generally ask you to say them, but I mean, if I had to summarize Cosmogramma, I'm not sure. I mean, I just always say like speculative fiction stories with mostly black British protagonists, which is a terrible two-line pitch. But that's about it. I mean, for me, there's obviously unifying themes, but for the most part, I kind of like just wrote the stories, but trying not to think about that, and I leave it for the audience to decide. What those themes are actually, what those unifying themes are anyway.
Yeah.
The individual stories have themes, but how they link together in a collection, I kind of leave that alone. I will say my inspiration for writing this was classic speculative fiction and sci-fi, especially like the British classic science fiction. there were a lot of writers that I was trying to emulate. Um, Daphne du Maurier, The Birds. I know she's not
Oh
considered
yeah.
a science fiction writer, but I think that story is one of my favorite short
Yep.
stories ever.
Daphne du
Uh,
Maurier, I mean, everybody should really like go in their, used bookstore and pick up whatever they can find. Yeah.
yeah, but The Birds is just it's almost like a perfect short story. And then, just writers who were writing like kind of like horror stroke speculative fiction that probably wouldn't be considered that. And of course, as soon as I start talking about it, my brain goes blank. But I'm looking at my bookshelves. There was like lots of writers who kind of blur the lines a little bit that I was drawing from, but I really wanted to write
J.G. Ballard, and what's the guy
J.G.
with
Ballard. Yeah,
The Triffids guy?
yeah,
That's
John
every
Wyndham. John Wyndham. Yes, like
John Wyndham. Everybody in Britain
huge
has
John
read
Wyndham
the
fan.
Triffids.
Yeah, and
Is that a
so
requirement if you're British? You want to get your passport, got to read. I mean, it's
yeah,
awesome. I mean, the Triffids, folks,
amazing.
honestly.
There was a TV show when I was a kid as well, but John Wyndham was a major like Consider Her Ways, the collection, the short story collection that he wrote. I devoured that. Obviously Gibson, and I was just trying to riff on those ideas. I think Wyndham, especially Day of the Triffids, obviously Seed is kind of riffing off that, but I wanted to bring it into the contemporary, and I also wanted to make it diverse and reflect, like contemporary multiculturalism, but particularly Black Britishness, and I wanted to put us into those stories. So in a way, if I ever wrote another collection of short stories that were going to be speculative fiction, I think I would definitely go for a more, okay, now I'm going to launch out and do some crazy stuff. But with
Mhm.
this one, I was like more trying to be like, okay, so what would those guys have been writing now if they lived now and they'd grown up like I did? What kind of things would they be talking about? So taking the old themes and the tropes and stuff and just like subverting them a little bit from our perspective.
What do you mean by crazier, more out there versus if you look at that? So that implies that you think like these stories are a little too pedestrian for your own taste right now?
Not too pedestrian for my own taste, but I think what I was doing, like again, going back to the elevator pitch, I suppose, and the thematic links. In a way, I was trying to more pay homage to the stories that
Hmm.
have gone before, and I was trying to actually tackle them. Like, I was using them as jumping off points. So I would always say, okay, so how could I spin that kind of trope, but from our perspective? And I think most of the stories are linked in that. I
Right.
wasn't
So
trying
if we
to.
take the Triffids, for example,
Yeah,
Triffids,
exactly.
if people haven't read it, the guy wakes up and everybody is gone and the plants have basically taken over.
Yeah,
And
exactly. But they're
yeah,
aliens, right? They're aliens from
yep,
the comet, and it's blinded everyone.
blinded
And
everyone.
that's how that they can get you because you can't actually see, and they sting you and then kill you and eat you.
Much better than Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the movie.
It's a brilliant story. And yeah, so I wanted so Seed is a direct, has a direct lineage from that, and the whole man versus machine thing has been done quite a lot. So it's not that I was definitely in recognition of the fact that these things have been done, but I just wanted to, like I said, just try, like, okay, is there a new way of doing them? Is there a new twist that I can put on these stories and stuff? And what would happen if I set them like mostly in London? There's a couple of stories that aren't obviously, but
Ah,
what if I did them in London? What if there was an alien invasion in Stratford, Forest Gate? You know what I mean? Like, what would that
ah.
look like? You know what I mean? And so that's what I was trying to do with this collection. And I think if I did another collection, I would probably just throw that away entirely and say, okay, well, let's read. I've done that now. I've paid my dues a little bit. Let's go off and do some really like probably. I don't want to say this because it sounds like I'm belittling my own project, but like probably not use those tropes and those themes that already exist and like create my own.
Now I understand what you meant by that. But then, okay, then let me assure the folks out there because I think the stories are out there. I mean, if out there means like, crazy, inventive, and surprising,
Yeah,
they totally are. But now
yeah.
I
Thank
understand
you.
what you meant by that. That sort of the jumping off point. What were those classics? What is
Yeah,
interesting, I found this. I want to put this on the slide projector here. If the camera can look at the slide projector, Cosmogramma is a is the third studio album of a band called the Flying Lotus.
This is
Did you
true.
know that?
Yep.
What
Yep.
the what does Cosmogramma mean? And maybe it's it's the title story, which
Yeah.
is a pretty out there story. But
Yeah.
what does it mean to you?
Cosmogramma is there, like there's a thing, and I'm gonna garble this explanation, but a cosmogram is a kind of like it's almost like an emblem that was drawn into the ground, and it's symbolic. And they've got one at the Schomburg Center in New York, in Harlem, and it's kind of it's an African, it's based on African ritual ground markings, and it's a symbol that symbolizes the meeting together of things that people and places that are usually apart. And yeah, that's basically what it is. So they've got this huge cosmogram in the Schomburg Center in Harlem that you can. It's in the central hall, and you can walk in and you can see it, and it's got like a river, and it's got symbols, and it's a way of it's almost like a. I said emblem, right? It's like an emblem or a motif or something that's drawn in order to signify or visualize, the spiritual and physical coming together of ideas and people. And I discovered the name through this album, which was one of my favorite Flying Lotus albums. I'm a huge Flying Lotus fan, but I really really loved the album. I was listening to it a lot during the writing of this, and I every one of my short story collections is has a title that refers to music,
Hmm.
which in turn refers to my musical background, where I came from. So my first collection was called Music for the Off Key. My second one was called The Book of Blues. This one's called Cosmogramma. And the next one will be Conversations with the Unseen, and which is a Soweto Kinch album. Soweto Kinch is a British jazz artist and producer. Yeah, I'm always referring to music, and that's because I see short stories as kind of like albums. I treat them like albums and like concept albums,
And
So
now I forgot that I wanted to do a slide with Sanra because you have a Sanra
yeah,
actually here from, I think, I don't know where that's from, but in the very beginning of the book, you write, in some far off place,
yes,
many light years in space, I'll wait for you. Where
yes.
human feet have never trod, where human eyes have never seen, I'll build a world of abstract dreams and wait for you. Sanra is amazing, and maybe
Hmm.
people could put like a link in the chat, and people can look up Sandra if they're not familiar with his work.
Yeah,
Uh,
total
Very
visionary.
important.
But
Yeah.
I think Cosmogramma, well, Flying Lotus was definitely heavily influenced by Sun Ra. And on the Cosmogramma album cover, you can see there's this symbol of
Hmm.
like a circle, and it's white on black, I think, if I remember rightly. I can't see the slide, but that is actually a symbol that Sun Ra holds in some of his albums. If you see in some album covers, Sun
Oh.
Ra is actually holding that same symbol. And again, it goes back to this idea of people and places and things that that are separate, that have been brought together by this idea of the cosmogram. Like that's exactly what Flying Lotus was doing when he referenced back to Sumra. And I decided to, so on the cover, our cover, we're kind of riffing off that same symbol on the front cover of Cosmogram as well. The artistic designer Michael Salu, who did that cover, we talked about, well, we didn't really talk about it. I just sent him those visuals, and and he went off and he drew that cover in that way. So
If the camera can go into the book on the table here, please, a little bit. That we have the Cosmogramma. Yeah, the cover of the book is amazing. I'm gonna illuminate the back here a little bit with a light real quick so we can see the slide a little bit better. Um, Shyla and Monkey do research for the show, as you know, Courttia. I don't do any research. I just read the books and
yeah.
then I come up with stuff. No, but Shyla pulled some quotes, and I wanted to do this a little later when we do a revisiting of the River Called Time. But let's put this in here now because we're talking about it.
Mm.
Because you're talking about religion and spirituality, and Shyla produced this quote from you from a previous interview where you say, I wanted to do a science fiction where religion is talked about. This is referring to River Called Time. where religion is not discounted. Most European science fiction, if people are religious, they're zealots.
Mm,
I wanted more. This is just a part of everyday existence. It's no biggie. It's normality. I find that really interesting. I couldn't agree more. It's really like religious characters are always like these buffoons
yeah,
that are sort of like buying into some, the talking snake or some stuff. And
yeah.
you have just a so nuanced in the river called time, but also here. I mean, it goes through, and we're just, we're talking about Sandra, who was able to connect all these things. So riff a little bit on how important that is to you.
I mean, it's funny. I think when I was saying that, I was just responding to the fact that it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson says. He's a physicist. He talk. He's a scientist and an academic and a presenter, and he does not believe in religion. But I'm going to garble his quote as well. And paraphrase it, but he said, "But it's impossible to discount, the amount of people on this world who do believe in religion. You can't just say, oh yeah, they're all, we have a difference of opinion, but to say they're all idiots and dismiss them is kind of strange,
Mhm.
considering the fact that these beliefs are shared all over the world by millions of people. And so I'm not a big on organized religion per se, but I wouldn't disrespect that. And I just found it really funny that to think that something that has had such a huge cultural impact on this planet since time began, our humanity since time began, is completely discounted in the future that is written by all of these people. I find
Right,
that funny. I mean, like,
right.
what you think it would just disappear or go away? Everyone just says that. Yes, yes. As we get more scientific, people will stop believing in religion, and I doubt that very much. I don't really think
That's
that's
a really good point.
true.
So you're talking from a world building perspective. If you
Yeah,
envisioned this future society, it would kind of be absurd that this sort of from Monday to Tuesday, or even over the course of like 100 years, or even a
yeah.
thousand, that it completely disappears.
Yeah, I don't think that it would happen. I just don't I can't see how that would happen, that people would just stop believing in religion, even if it's not something that I completely believe in. I believe in spirituality, but I'm still trying to reinterpret what that means, because obviously I'm from the Caribbean and we lost a lot of our African original belief systems. You know what I mean? I don't really know what those things are, so I'm trying to like do research to find that out. And A River Called Time was the result of a lot of that research. But yeah, I'm like I said, I'm not really I'm definitely in no way someone who believes in organized religion in any way. I'm not any of those things, but I have a healthy respect for people who practice them according to the tenets
Mm.
of those beliefs, even though, I might not necessarily always agree with the things that they're doing, you know what I mean? But I think, okay, well, you're entitled to your opinion, right?
This is interesting. V Hope says on YouTube, I read the Bible as a kind of sci-fi,
Yeah, yeah,
except I see it as a sci-fact being a Catholic,
yeah,
says V
yeah,
Hope. That's interesting. I read the
yeah,
Bible too. I don't. I was like 14 or 15. I just thought it
yeah,
was so interesting.
yeah.
People talk about it all the time.
It's a great
Yeah,
story, you know,
it's a
and
good
and
story, but it wouldn't win the Arthur C. Clarke Award, which I believe you were nominated for, or did you win it? Or
I was nominated. Yeah, no, I didn't win it. But like, I was
you
nominated,
have
which
that
I'm
in
really
common with the Bible, but the Bible wasn't even
exactly.
nominated.
I know, poor Bible. But hey, I just saw that there was something that was said earlier that I just wanted to respond to, because I didn't want to feel like I was like not in the chat, like being dismissive
Yeah,
of
there
these
is
things.
some chat.
Jessica said, John Wyndham's books are great, but very white and women free. And yeah, of
Oh,
course, that's
yeah, good point. Yeah,
a
please
great point.
respond to that because you were, as you said, Cosmogramma is people who are not white. I mean, can my additional question to before you respond, can white people still relate though to Cosmogramma, Courttia? Why are you
Uh,
excluding white people? I mean, I'm a white guy and I read this. Have I wasted my time?
I'm not sure. Did you feel like your time was wasted?
No, not at all.
I mean, it's funny. I don't think about that, and definitely when I'm writing them, even though a lot of the stories, people are black. I don't. I think like. sometimes it's just for me to know, you know. Sometimes it's just not important. They are, and that's who they are, and that's about it. Like in a story like Scarecrow, for instance, I don't think it matters, but all the main characters in that story are black. And I don't think it changes the reading experience to know that or not to know that. So I don't
This is
really
so
comment on
interesting
it.
because my I really read this really from a class perspective. To me, the comment
Yeah.
earlier you said, what's the common thread? You don't know, the reader. And as a reader, I'll tell you what the common thread is. It's really a commentary on how most people's life is destroyed by uncompromised capitalism. I don't know. That's
that's
my
that's
reading.
that's really interesting because that is a particular bugbear of mine, but I wasn't sure if that came through in the book. So to hear you say that is really
Well,
fun.
maybe this the
Yeah.
lens where I look at through everything, and people could probably say, "Oh my God, Drexter, you read everything under that lens." But I found it interesting that the cultural background, the ethnicity did not factor for me at all, but the way that these characters are impacted by the economic system that we live in. So I am a class essentialist, as some people.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with you there. And even in a story like Nomo, like that's got a woman main character, and but I don't think, I mean, maybe it did have something to do with her as a character, but I'm not sure thematically it
What
has a
is
lot to do
normal
with the
about?
story. Nomo is the one that they're in Barbados and they do the deep sea dive and they encounter those
The underwater creatures.
the
That's an
underwater creatures.
amazing. Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
thank you. I wasn't sure about that story to be
That
honest. I nearly
Nomo
got
is
cut.
Oh, I didn't say this earlier. Nomo is awesome. It's an underwater society that is discovered by these divers. I mean, it's a beautiful. Why were you not sure about this one?
I think because that was my most conventional in terms of the kind of Afrofuturism, African futurism umbrella, Like I was starting to think when I got towards the end of the collection that I should do a story like that. Because maybe I hadn't maybe my stories weren't very conventional in that sense. And I do, it's a subgenre that I really love, So it's not like that it wasn't for commerce or anything. It was just like, okay, if I'm doing this thing, then maybe I should try out that because why should I just ignore it and stuff? And so I wrote that story, and yeah, it took a lot of work. A lot of these stories took a lot of work. Like Dark Matters, I think, yeah, because I was writing it from somewhere around 2013, 2014 to now, I did a lot of rewrites basically, and they all got quite a big polish. And that one was particularly, it took me a while to get that one going and write and stuff like that. I'm really happy with it now, but I feel like at the time I just wasn't sure. I was a bit on the fence, like, have I got this or have I not got this? That's how I felt about it when I was writing it. It's the
That's
same.
actually that's a interesting. I have a question here on my run sheet about like how do you know? Do you have like a gut? Do you have a good relationship with your gut that tells you I need to abandon this idea,
Yeah.
or are you sometimes skeptical about that gut, what the gut tells you? Those kind of things are so. But let me
Mm-hmm.
look at the chat real quick, and I'm sorry if I don't pick up. Very lively chat here. Let's just say, read here. Stranger says in one of his novels, Arthur C. Clarke speculated that most people would end up becoming Buddhists. Speaking about the future of religion. Um, Baragon says religion is important to the Bajorans in Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Awesome.
Baragon says the enemy in the Orville is driven by their religion to evangelize and conquer the galaxy. He's
Mm-hmm.
talking about plot points.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Dahlia says people have believed in religion much longer than people have believed in science.
Yeah.
You don't say, Dahlia, because the weird stuff, that happens when the crops go bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's that gonna be?
And and say
A god.
like the Comitians, the ancient Egyptians, they had a fusion between the two. They believed science and religion were entwined, and that's kind of where I was going with A River for Time. It's just this idea that they could coexist, in the same space. And I think that would be healthy for us. I think too much of one or too much of the other is just definitely no good. But yeah,
Well,
there
the
are.
organized part, as you said earlier, I think we can agree
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
very rigid organizations are, if it's the military or the religion or
yeah.
whatever else.
Yeah,
Or
anything.
Waldorf schools. Right now, there's a huge thing about Waldorf schools here in Germany, an expose from an investigative reporter team, but I don't want to get completely sidetracked. Shaila asked, I believe in the River of Time, some characters have their beliefs intertwined in their day-to-day lives as opposed to a once a week
Yeah.
sort of conviction. Would you call this a religion or faith or something you do on Sundays?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's more faith, spirituality, I think. But I think in that world, it would be seen as a religion because that's how people practice religion. Indigenous people practice religion all over the world. Wasn't just like you go to a church on Sunday and you confess and then you go out and then you sin on Monday to Saturday. It's kind of, and then you come back for forgiveness. It's
That's
more
the
like how
best
you live
selling
your
point.
life.
That's the sales pitch of that kind of religion.
It
It's
worked
awesome. Do
really
whatever you
well.
do, but you
Yeah.
just got to do this one thing and all is good.
Yeah, yeah, but it is more about how you live your daily lives, and definitely, I feel like people who are really adhering to Christianity obviously don't do that, but it's a good little get out course for people who are just a little bit challenged faith wise.
That is fantastic. I'm a little challenged faith wise. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got so many friends who are like that. I'd
Oh
go
yeah.
out with them and hang out with them and go raving on a Saturday, and then they go to church on Sunday. I'd be like, bro, listen, man. I was with you all Saturday. I know how you sinned.
I'm gonna bring in a special guest, which is the Second Life book club general manager, but he's disguised as a radio, and the general manager will read a few passages from Cosmogramma.
Thank you.
Cosmogramma is out now. It's Courttia's short story collection, which you should get not right now. Just go get it after the show. Um, but I want to read, not me, sorry, the book club general manager is going to read
Mhm.
from page 69. Why? Because Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian theorist and sociologist, said that if you pick up any book and open it at page 69, it will tell you if that book is for you. So, I
Mm.
mean, I think he said that kind of tongue in cheek, but it is actually a fun game that I encourage folks to try. And it's kind of amazing if you do that and you go like, wow, that is really true. So his thing was, Birgit Bloom says, I thought it was 42. No, no, that was that's a different theory. Good one. Very good one.
I've not heard any of those theories, so this is going to be
Oh,
very interesting.
Google page 69 Marshall McLuhan and you'll find it. It's
Mhm.
confirmed. And basically the theory is that then on that page it will immediately give you tell you if the book is for you, if you enjoy that vibe, that theme, or whatever it is.
I'm looking at Cosmogramma, and I think that page 68 is better. But hey,
So if the sales are down, you will blame Marshall McLuhan says
yeah,
what is up with the page 69,
yeah,
68.
yeah, exactly. You chose the wrong page, bro.
So this is not the entire page 69. This is just one paragraph, and here we go. Please read away, Mr. Second Life Book Club manager.
They drove through the buzzing streets and markets of their township and onto the quiet, scattered villages on the outskirts of their borough, where the people wore long robes and rode huge lumbering scaramons that were short and squat and red as the barren deserts to the east, where they roamed in prides of hundreds. Still the dusky van kept going into the land, where there was nothing but land, further than most of the children had ever gone.
Most than the children had ever gone. So I think, if I read this, like wow, they're going somewhere. They've never went there. Okay, that's good. I'm going to buy this book. That's how I would do it. Um, Now, the next one is a very brief excerpt from Utoma, just for folks to get a little bit of your, what I find very, very poetic language. I mean, you come from music, and I don't know, maybe I'm also reading into this, but I feel that there is a musicality uh, with rhythm, and just the language is just superb. So this is just a little 20-second expert of from Utoma. Take it away, book club manager.
They drove through the buzzing streets and markets of their township and onto the quiet, scattered villages on the outskirts of their borough, where the people wore long robes and rode huge lumbering stallions that were short and squat and red as the barren deserts to the east, where they roamed in prides of hundreds. Still, the dusky van kept going into the land where there was nothing but land, further than most of the children had ever gone.
Oh, I think he read that again. What a doofus that general manager is.
I didn't hear it.
Garden,
I can't hear
my
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
daily ritual. There's a hum of escaping insects. Go into the
I
garden
was wondering.
146.
Here he is. Now he has the right excerpt. Ah, can't get
Today
good
is my
personally.
146,000th dawn. As always, it's spectacular. I go into the garden, my daily ritual. There's a hum of escaping insects, the soft breath of wind, the expanse of green and silent land. To the south, the hazy orb of Utoma City. To the east, a dark undulation of hills merges into a marble blue sky fissured with growing light. I pause to watch this tender seepage, the rise of our soul. I'm amazed.
That's beautiful. I'm amazed. The rise of our soul. Wonderful stuff. So that's from Cosmogramma. Thank you, manager. But next time just prepare a little bit better. Uh, Terrible debt reader. Delia is saying in the local chat is Delia is sorting out her hundreds of real life books over this holiday and will try the page 69 trick. Yeah, keep you busy. Bergon is asking, is the value of religion in a sci-fi setting its moral teachings or merely in acknowledging that no matter how scientifically advanced a society is, that an element of the unexplainable supernatural always remains?
Yeah, I think the second. I think there's that more.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
the need
yeah,
also to the urge of us to want to go have somewhat certainty, I guess.
yeah, and
The
also,
certainty, because also that's what I'm sorry to tell you, but religion also sells a certain certainty
yeah,
of like purpose, right?
yes,
Because if you're like an agnostic or an atheist and you say, well, this is really random, people are really scared of that.
yeah,
That is just
super
sort of
scared.
like, oh, I'm just this guy and I happen to be doing this and I have some success, some failures, and there's no real purpose to all of this.
Yeah, and I think the more we start to explore the enormity of the universe around us, or even the galaxy around us, or the solar system around us, man. I mean, or our own solar system, and the more we realize that we don't know, the more
When I
people are
open
going
my
to want
eyes,
to
I'm
be
huddled
tethered to
against the
something
cold
that
steps
feels
that they're still
recognizable to
here.
them and some way of understanding the world. And I think that's very important to like a lot of people, and I think that isn't going to go away either. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, oh, yeah, the general manager says he apologizes. He wants to redeem himself by reading one more thing. But first, I have another question, and then we'll have a long reading from Courttia. I'm looking at the clock here as well.
Mhm.
A lot of stuff. One other common thread in Cosmogramma that I see is technology and the question, should we be excited about technological progress or should we be scared?
Mm.
Um, I always think, and I think your stories are perfect opening these, and again, maybe it's just me reading into it. Um, that technology very often, I think, actually almost always, if it's good or bad is really a question of who owns the technology.
Right.
Shouldn't be really, that shouldn't be it's not an original thought of mine. I think it should be really obvious
Mm.
that it really depends how this is, who is using it. If the people have the power or some big monopolies out, global monopolies.
Yeah.
But
Or governments,
yep,
and I think we should be wary of that. I suppose my point is not necessarily be scared or be excited, even just be a bit wary of it and say, okay, are we gonna what are the consequences going to be of taking this next step? Because as we know, there are always consequences. You know.
what are you most afraid of? What technology are you okay, weary of, or concerned about how it will impact society?
God, there's so much.
I'll go
Uh,
first. Artificial intelligence.
really, yeah.
Yep.
It's funny because I wrote about it, but that's not the one that really worries me to that degree. Although I think, yeah, it has the potential to change things for the worse. Definitely.
When
I
I
mean, when you see that robot that they're testing that can run upstairs and jump around, or the dogs and stuff, that's pretty scary looking. That does definitely makes me feel fear. And nothing else really. I don't ever feel warm and fuzzy when I look at those robots.
Right, from that company Boston, whatever that is. But
Yes,
let me tell
exactly.
you, I'm not. But what I'm afraid of, and maybe I'll get your response to this. I'm not afraid of those things as much as I'm afraid of the AI that we already are controlled by, which is
Yeah,
the algorithm.
yeah, yeah.
So people talk about, oh God, my God, Elon Musk is an 8-year-old psychopath with the emotional intelligence of an 8-year-old. I was gonna say, but the issue is that he controls a huge platform that is or was already problematic, just like
Mhm.
Facebook, where the algorithm is controlling to a large extent what we see, how we respond, and that kind of thing. A robot like a Terminator type robot or those Boston whatever that company is called, yeah, using that in war and drones, that is pretty bad stuff. But the everyday type of uh, artificial intelligence, what we mostly refer to as algorithm, I think that is super impactful. If it's a website where you have to get your medication, let's say, and you type in the wrong password, and there's no human behind it and says, well, wrong password, we can't ship your medication. Those
Mhm.
are the things that I'm most scared of. But this is not about me; it's about you.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with the Boston robots is that I'm worried about the fusion between the two things. So I'm worried that the algorithms and the AI will be fused into one entity, and
Mm.
that's when shit will get real. You know what I mean? Like, but actually that doesn't worry me as much as this whole push for outer space. uh
Interesting. Yeah.
Actually
Yep.
really really worries me
Yep.
because yeah, just looking at the way that we've managed to mess up our own planet, the idea of going to other planets and repeating the same thing, or going to even the moon and repeating the same thing, I think is a recipe for huge disaster. So yeah, that slightly worries me. I love the idea of exploration and stuff, but that kind of thing being used for the military, and that kind of
Yep.
thing being used by industry is really scary to me. Yeah, I'm worried about that more than anything.
And by extension, really neglecting what's going on. And I just put the term long termism, which is something that I actually fairly recently came about. Look it up, folks, not now, pay attention, but later, look up long termism. This is a philosophy that a lot of very, very rich, very powerful people subscribe to. And long termism, in essence, means um, we basically, even if millions of people suffer now or possibly die, it doesn't matter because human race has a long future, and that has to do with going into space and conquering space and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So those long-term goals are way more important, say these long-termists, than solving, the healthcare crisis now.
yeah,
Uh, Surprise, surprise, well-known folks as like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the like, they are big fans of that
yeah,
concept.
yeah, yeah. Of course,
You know.
it suits them.
Well, now that we're depressed enough, let's read. You chose a story, Dark Matters, from the
This is right.
collection.
Yeah,
And please do set it up a little bit for us.
yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna read. I'm not gonna be able to read the whole of this because I think you timed it and it was like 25 minutes. So I'm gonna try and read a section from not too far in the middle, but towards the middle. And basically it's a young black boy. He's moving, transitioning, not in that sense, from becoming, he's going through puberty and from being a boy into a man. And he's a little bit uncomfortable with what that brings him as a young black boy in Britain. And he's just become very isolated, and he spends a lot of time on his own in his bedroom, and he's drawing planets and things. And he's become a bit of a recluse. But his mum forces the local kid from down the road to check in on him and make sure he's all right and give him some company. And this kid's come round, and this kid's told him that he's seen something in the warehouses not far from where they live, where they all play. So he said, "Come with me. I just want to show you something." And so he says, "Okay." And he gets on his bike. And at the point I'm going to read from, they're riding to this thing that this boy has told him. Their names are Max and Noel. Noel's the boy from down the street who's come to show him something, and Max is a protagonist. I'm just going to read from there. Do you want to say something,
Courttia,
Jack?
1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is a book club requirement. I
Mm.
apologize.
Oh
You
yeah,
you
sure.
you need to stand up.
That's right. Yeah.
This is
Sorry.
really like elementary school where the teacher tells you,
Yeah, you got to stand in front of the classroom and do the book
yes, you
report.
have to face the classroom. There you go.
Okay.
Just turn around.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm got my back to it. This is really like not good, is it?
Use the right. You're Miles Davis right now without the
Yeah, yeah,
trumpet.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
I always wanted to do this.
use the right arrow key. Keep the right arrow key
Yeah,
pressed, and
yeah.
then you'll turn. There you go. And a little bit more, a little bit more,
It's
more,
just
more, more. Keep it pressed. Keep it
such a lag.
pressed. Oops. What am I doing? I'm here to help.
I'm not turning. Oh, hey.
Hit the escape key a couple of times, and then the right arrow key. There you go. There you go.
Oh, it's moved again. Oh, here you are. Yeah.
That's good. I'll move the lectern. Here we
Okay,
go.
thank you, thank you. That's like being a toddler again. It is.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's the little fun part. Okay, so now we're starting
Cool.
with Dark Matters.
Dark Matters, yeah, and yeah. So this is a couple of pages in, I think, 2 or 3 pages in. They rode single file in silence, past the small park used by Amberley Aggie more than anyone else, beneath the quiet thunder of the underpass and onto the busy main road, which for some reason was called a lane. Even their bikes were nothing alike. Noel's a gleaming thoroughbred, bright red with thin black tyres. Max's a lumbering matte black no-name, thick-boned with a wide snakeskin tread, rusting and creaking as its wheels turned slow. They cruised at medium pace, Noel seemingly in no hurry. Traffic was snarled up this close to rush hour, granting the ability to ride single and double yellows in lieu of bike lanes, ignoring the momentary panic on car passengers' faces, unaware of their relaxed, guilt-ridden calm once they were gone. The day was bright, the breeze chilled as the sun began to fall, Max relishing his mild sweat as he bore down on the pedals. When Noel turned left immediately after the overhead railway bridge, he followed. Traffic sounds lowered. The rolling shush of car tires became soothing, momentary. There was even the sound of chattering birds. Max closed his eyes, enjoying the sensation. His tires were beneath him. The warehouse had once been some kind of factory, but it had clearly been long abandoned. On the upper floors, steps ascended into thin air and crumbling window frames. The only intact ceilings were on floors 1 and 2, which were dark, even though the sun was bright, foreboding, even from outside. Noel glanced over his
They
shoulder
drove
as he
through the
wheeled his
buzzing
bike towards
streets
the
and
dusty
market.
steps. Other than that, he hardly seemed to notice Max. He lifted the bike up towards the blue factory doors.
When I opened my
A
eyes, I'm
scroll of
huddled
tags
against the
was
cold.
etched on wooden boards that replaced the broken glass. Max thought the doors were closed, locked, as both were straight backed and rigid. But when Noel pushed, there was just enough space to squeeze themselves and the bikes through their resistance. Inside, he kicked one semi-closed. It barked a splinter in protest, stuck. Noel wheeled his bike further inside, and so Max left the door be, trailing after him. The ground floor was vast. He couldn't see the far end, consumed as it was by shadow, the walls disappearing into gloom, much as the stairs above their heads evaporated into sky. Everywhere was dust and rubble, as though an earthquake had taken place, leaving the outside untouched. He saw repeated mounds of white plaster embedded with red bricks that reminded him of strawberry meringue. Some mounds touched the pocked and cracked white ceiling. Cathedral arch windows beamed stunted blocks of daylight on either side of the boys, but the centre of the hall was dark and difficult to make out. Max found himself stumbling every few steps. On what? He dared not guess. The smell was of mould, damp earth. It clogged his nose and made his eyes feel heavy. The scrape of their feet caused a sea of dust to rise around their ankles. Every now and then there was a downpour of debris as showers of plaster fell from floors above, thankfully nowhere near them. He stopped pushing the bike to rub his fingers together. They were rough, powdery, and he could taste the crackle of grip between his teeth. In front of him, the dust fog settled. He could just make out Noel's shadow. He angled his handlebars in that direction and only knew he'd reached him when he bumped the back of his legs. Oi, Noel said, softer than usual. Sorry, Max whispered, following his lead. He's sleeping, Noel said. Max was just about to ask what, but he stepped out from behind Noel and saw. Beyond the boys, there was a small pile of rubble as high as Max's waist. On, or spread across the crumbled plaster, it was difficult to tell, was nothing. Or rather, it was something as far as Max could see, although exactly what he didn't know. A black patch, dark ooze where there should have been sand-like plaster. There was an absence of light on the ground before them, a hole-like rip into the earth that led to an abyss. There was empty space, the substance he stared at night after night. It was the vision before his eyes when his lids were closed. The deepest part of night, when he lay in bed roused from dreams. To see it where it shouldn't be made Max dizzy with uncertainty, and he stepped back with a yelp of surprise. He stumbled on an unseen brick, which shot from beneath his foot and made him fall, the bike clattering to the dust in a racket of gears and wheels. He blanked out for a moment, trying to collect himself. Through holes in the glass roof, the faraway blue sky spun in slow motion. A whispered cloud travelled on the wind. Noel whispered, shit. And Max only just heard him, thinking he might be in trouble, so he tried to get up. Only when he pulled himself into a sitting position, he froze. Everything left him. Body heat, voice, his breath. The dark ooze had moved. It wasn't spread out on the floor, it was sitting up like him. No, it wasn't sitting up. It was pushing itself onto hollow haunches. He could see that what he'd first thought of as a random spread of substance was actually man-like. Arms, legs, torso, head, all midnight black, all devoid of features. Humanoid. The creature got to its feet, spreading its arms out wide. A man-shaped silhouette 3 inches taller than him, around 6'4", a cut-out patch of black shape, and inside that, dark void. Max tried to peer into the depths. For a moment, there was the sparkle of distant stars. Galaxies, perhaps? The nothing was so deep it almost gave off its own light. Maybe that was what he was seeing? He leant forward, yearning for more, so captivated he barely registered Noel saying, see? It's beautiful. The being seemed to hear him. It extended a pitch-black hand, fingers reaching, strained for contact. It didn't move. Noel stepped forward. No, Max whispered from the rubble floor. Noel ignored him, inching closer, an exhalation of dust at his feet. He touched the darkened fingers and immediately, instead of grasping them, Noel's fingers began to disappear. It was as though they'd been immersed in a gleaming pool of thick oil. He made a terrible noise, moaning fear and revulsion, deep-throated, growing louder as he fell deeper into the creature's body. The darkness covered more of him, his knuckles, wrist, forearm, his elbow and up one shoulder. Noel's feet began to slide closer into the creature, sending roiling dust puffing high, some of which also vanished into the dark form. Half Noel's torso, his leg, his face, which turned towards Max and let out a roaring scream until it covered his shaved head, and the substance filled his mouth, cutting off his voice as though a plug had been pulled inside him. Max yelled something that wasn't even a word, his throat raw. The creature sucked Noel in, took his whole body until there was only a flailing arm, a bent elbow, fingers writhing like wind-blown leaves, sliding inside the creature with a dull pop. Immersion. It was still. Thanks, and I'll leave it there.
Wow. Big round of applause. Dang,
Yeah.
dang. Immersion. We're completely immersed. We're immersed in a virtual world. We're immersed in the darkness. Um, So that won you over a bunch of regulars that I see in the audience who love the horror end of things. Now, picking up what you said earlier about working hard on these stories, doing a lot of revisions. When do you know that a story is can't be saved and you have to abandon it?
For me, usually that happens pretty early on. So there was a couple of stories that were meant to be in this collection, ideas that I'd had, and I wrote 2 or 3 pages of them, and I just wasn't interested. I'd been like, oh, this is going to be a great idea and everything, and these are the wrote in my notes and stuff, and then I got started on it, and then I was just like, nah, this ain't working, and I usually just stop. Um, yeah, I mean,
So like 2, 3 pages. I mean, that's not that bad. We had
no,
talked with Liz Jensen, one of my
hmm
favorite British authors, and she
yeah, I know
she
this.
said she had like 3 books or something, like halfway through or almost, and then threw them all in the trash. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
it's not all in the trash. You have ideas that you can use later, but that to me is like, oh my God, you're working for months on something before you have to admit this is not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I've done that. I've had that with a couple of novels actually, where that's happened. I wrote the whole novel and then just, like I knew it was trash. This was in the early days. I knew it was trash when I was writing it, and it didn't really get better once I'd finished it. But at that stage, I was like, I need to get to the end because maybe I can rectify this, and it wasn't rectifiable, unfortunately. And one novel that like I thought it was good, but I think maybe just the time wasn't right for it. Publishers weren't really ready for it. It was quite subversive and stuff. And then by the time, I think I'd done it pretty well, but it just didn't ever take. And I don't know if I'd ever return to it now. I think it's just too late now. I've moved on as a writer. Things have moved on in the world, so I don't think I'll ever, put that book out. But yeah, with stories, I tend to react a little bit quicker, and most of the time stories work for me. So if I'm really not feeling it, that's quite a bad sign, and I don't tend to push it any further than that. I'll be like, okay, this is gone, and that's weird with Nomo, because Nomo, that's why it's weird with Nomo, because I kind of had a bad feeling about it, but then once I'd finished it, I was like, this actually works, like I
Hmm.
really do like it. But I couldn't shake that feeling that I'd had in the beginning, and that's the first time that's happened for me, where I've really been like, this is. I just feel on the fence about it right up until it got published.
But that's the thing, because sometimes you have a weird feeling, and you over the course of your life, the more
Yeah,
you do it, have a relationship with that feeling, and then you
yeah,
kind of rely on that feeling. But sometimes that feeling is also influenced by other feelings,
yeah, yeah,
and you can't
exactly.
trust it 100%.
You can't. My
So
editor
what do
was
you do
like,
then? Then you go to an editor or a
yeah,
friend.
yeah, yeah. I went to my editor. I sent it to a few people. Everyone seemed to like it when I sent it to people. And then, when I told my editor that I was considering cutting it, she was just like, "No, you can't do that." So it stayed. I was like, "Okay, I trust your. If you're telling me you think it's good, then, I'll keep going with it. I'll keep it in the collection.
Shyla here is asking, I've read where your research throughout your writing process, you research throughout the writing process, and maybe even afterwards you keep doing it. Do you continue into editing, or when do you stop with research? And do you
Yeah.
do the same amount with short stories? Actually, Shyla had a slide prepared that also refers to River Called Time, where
Mm-hmm.
you also, I think you say the book was finished and I was still doing research certain aspects of the book, and I was changing it and working on it, researching until I don't need to research anymore. There's a cutoff point. Now, again, where's the cutoff point? Well, you have to hand in the book, obviously, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, talk a little bit about that process.
Um, just when you feel it's done, really. And with River, I never quite felt that it was done in the sense that I just had to keep double checking my facts, because and I was blurring the line between fact and fiction right the way through the book, so no one's supposed to really know. Like if you're a layperson, then you don't know the difference between fact and fiction in the book. It's only if you've been reading up on things, you will be able to tell, okay, so that's from a real source and that maybe isn't. But like, I still wanted to just make sure I got it right because there was so much I didn't know in that book, and there's so much I had to learn, and getting a reliable source for a lot of the stuff that I was researching was difficult, you know. So I had to keep just going over it and going over it again and again, and so that's why I kept going right up until it was published, just to make sure that I was right. I went on courses, you know. I read all the books I could, and it was never enough, you know.
So
Um,
that has to do obviously with sorry to jump in here, but
mhm,
that has to do with the subject matter where you need
yeah,
where it's grounded in certain fact and historical context where you want to be
yeah.
100% sure.
Well, yeah, I was doing for that book. Obviously, I was doing African spirituality, you know, and it's so
Hmm.
vast, you know. Like to say the word African spirituality is just, in some ways, it's a bit ridiculous, you know, because like which one, you know. But I was trying to draw them together as much as possible, and yeah. So that meant that for the first time I was doing that over researching just to clarify what I meant and still trying to learn things, and I could never have learned everything, you know. Whereas with the short stories there's a bit more of a cutoff point. But you know, I'm always open. You know, I always keep myself open until you know the final edits go in, and they basically tell me you got to stop now.
Is that
So,
what you got from music as well?
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I think so. I think
Until the
it's
very
actually
last minute, right? I mean,
yeah,
because I think that's a very good attitude, frankly. Some people
really.
have
Okay.
a different philosophy.
I think with music it was a bit limiting because I would always be changing things all the time, and it never stayed the same. And I found it difficult to let go of certain things, and even within the structure of a song, you know, I was always trying to like. Sometimes I think I changed things too much. You know what I mean? I was a big fan of like starting off in one place musically and then ended up somewhere completely different. But maybe that's because I was more attuned to being a writer and I didn't know it at that time. You know, that's what stories
That
do.
you see, that leads me actually so off that we have a Vulcan mind melt because I'm fascinated why you felt or why did you move to expressing your ideas in writing rather than music? Riff a little bit on, what's the difference? What are the advantages or disadvantages to put your what you want to express in this medium that you chose now?
I the only reason I turned to writing is because I wanted to make money in order to make music. That was my original impetus. So I just wanted to buy studio equipment, and I didn't know enough about writing to know that you can't make money writing. So,
That's fantastic.
so I was like, you know, my idea, my actual plan was to the two guys that I made music with. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna sell the film rights to that book and I'm gonna make a shit ton of money and then we're gonna buy studio equipment and I'm never gonna write another book again. Cool, let's do this. This is my part of like our little unit. And I went off and I wrote the scholar
The
and then
scholar, and you know what? The
yeah,
scholar, I looked, I don't know, I don't know how I think I maybe Googled it to find an image,
uh-huh.
and it looks like on IMDb, it's been in development since 2016 to be made into a movie.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I was going to say that's never going to happen. I shouldn't say that, but it's
But
definitely not
but
on
at
the
least it's in
cards.
process. What you told your bandmates back in the day, I'm gonna go write a book, sell the film rights, and that's what you
Yeah.
did.
Well, I know I definitely did that. I actually did that in 1997. I sold the film rights, you know, but it
Hmm.
just never came out. So yeah, I did take the money. I did buy music equipment too. You know, I bought a load of music equipment. But then I ended up because what happened is like when I was writing the scholar, 3 months or so in, I was, you know, just putting a scene together and I was doing the characters, whatever, and I suddenly sat there and thought to myself, this is what I should be doing. Like, I mean, I don't actually think I want to do music anymore. And it was literally just like one day I was just sitting there and I suddenly said, I think the music thing's done, you know, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I've been meant to do my whole life. And I've been running away from it. But this actually feels really good and I'm really enjoying this. And I don't think I'll do it again. So obviously I kept that secret from my friends, but you know, we bought the equipment and stuff, and then I slowly kind of like backed out of doing the music thing because then the book got published and I was dealing with that, and it happened organically rather than me, you know, retiring like Jay-Z or something, you know.
This is quite interesting. I'm guessing is was one aspect of the appeal for you, uh, not having to deal with with bandmates. Actually, that leads me to a question: what is harder to navigate the what? Well, I don't want to use the word bullshit, but now I just did. Do you have to deal with more bullshit in the publishing industry or in the music industry?
Way more bullshit in the publishing industry. And the
Hmm.
thing is that now I have to deal with it alone. And I actually
Aha.
didn't mind having my team around me that I could talk to about stuff. I actually miss that stuff a lot, being having them around and it not just being me. And this is actually one of the deficits of the job I've chosen, is that I do it myself, and that's why I got into theatre, because at least in theatre there's a group of us, and I like writers' rooms. When it comes to TV and film, because I like working with other people. I'm actually, one of the worst things about this job is it's very antisocial, you
Mm.
know, and I'm not really like, I've grown to like the isolation, but at the same time, I like working with people. I really do. So I do miss that a lot.
Well, that's what you're doing now when you're writing for TV a little bit,
Yes,
no?
there
Yeah.
is, yeah, and it's good because I've got both worlds. When I get pissed off about having to work with people and I can't be in control of what I'm doing, I can always go back to a novel and be in complete control. So I think I've got the best of both worlds in that regard. I can move between the two things, and when I'm writing a novel, I'm just like bored of it being me the whole time and having to take care of everything. I can say, okay, so let's go and do some plays or some film stuff, and collaborate.
Want to read a few comments. Berrigan says George Harrison said he felt sorry for Elvis because Elvis had to cope with success alone.
Yes, I agree.
Uh, Delia says dealing with publishers and editors is frustrating and time consuming in my experience. I know Delia is working with a writer right now. I forgot in what capacity.
Mm.
Delia also earlier says after the story, big applause. I'm going to have to take a shower when this is over to remove all the yucky goop. Stranger says, I have heard that Mark Twain had mixed feelings about his manuscript for Huckleberry Finn, sometimes tossing it at times into a drawer for years at a time. Thank God he finally persisted.
Mm.
Going back to River Call Time. Oh, by the way, well, we'll have a slide here with a bunch of screenshots for Small Axe, which is a series that you did, was directed by Steve McQueen, and I believe you wrote 2 episodes.
Yeah,
Is
it was
that
two
correct?
episodes. Yeah, Lovers Rock and Red, White, and Blue.
So Small Axe, I think people can probably get it on demand somewhere.
Yeah, Amazon's got it, and I think it's
Amazon.
still on BBC iPlayer if you're in the UK.
Yeah, we're thankfully not there. Just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I really.
This is always something that drives me crazy because sometimes family goes like, "Oh, aren't you glad that you're in Germany with the stuff that's going on in America?" It's such a stupid comment. I mean, just because we're in that. Sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked on my situation, but I find it so nauseating when people congratulate other people on their privilege of being sort of mobile.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's this conservative trope sometimes where they go like, "Well, why don't you just move to another state if you don't like it here?" Well, yeah,
Mm.
sure, that's absolutely in my cards with the
Yeah, yeah, of course.
amount of
We all do
income
it.
that I make.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we all do it, don't we? Just get up and
we,
leave.
absolutely, in our vacation home in France or wherever. Um, but Birgit says Amnesty International is now advising people not to travel to the United States. Now that is in fact interesting.
Yeah.
Um, now, oh yeah, where was I? Right. So here is my on the slide projector. We see a river called Time, the original advanced reader's copy that I own, which is, I
Hmm.
think is a really cool cover. Is that river that goes in with the
Yeah.
sparklies, very organic,
Yeah.
almost
It's
like a
beautiful.
fume kind of like,
Yes.
right, like from
Mm.
a pipe or cigarette, and
Yeah, yeah.
gray background.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Then the current cover is this one here. This is the paperback.
Yeah.
Also really a wonderful cover.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think I think the first one won an award. It won Best Sci-Fi Cover Award.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a great cover. amazing.
Oh, that is actually the cover of the hardback. That is, see, I didn't even know this. I thought that this was just for the advanced copies.
No, no, yeah, they went with that. They just said let's keep it the way it is.
Oh,
Yeah, so which I was really happy about.
that is amazing. This is something that we often ask. I mean, you don't have any say in that, right? As a writer for
No, no,
covers.
no. I think especially because I knew Canongate these just awesome covers. I kind of was like, usually I try and stick my oar in and have a say, but this one I was like, you guys do what you want to do, and they came up both with both covers. You know, the paperback and the hardback are just like amazing.
Absolutely. We have about 15 minutes left. So first of all, the general manager wants to redeem himself and read something from a story. And we're going to have a little game because I want Courttia to tell us what that story is. It's a
Oh
little
wow,
test
cool.
if he remembers his own stories.
Probably not. Just shame myself now.
Um, Here we go, general manager. Go ahead. This is just a 30-second read.
Oh, I hope I can hear the general manager because the last three readings I couldn't
Oh,
actually
that's
hear.
correct. Right. The general manager is
That's my excuse anyway.
yeah, he's a little bit of a weirdo. That's right. So I will give it away and then just ask you what the because this is the ending of a particular story and I want to talk about endings. So here we
Mm.
go. Listen up, general manager, go ahead.
When I open my eyes, I'm huddled against the cold steps, and they're still here. The dead man, Danny, motionless in the center of the road, as though his feet are stuck. He looks at me, and his eyes are like empty space. He comes back to the building steps, looming over me. I flinch. His face crumbles. Nikki, I'm sorry, babe. I'll take care of you. I love you. He reaches out a hand, and I have to take it. He lifts me to my feet. It's only us now.
So the story ends with I take he reaches out a hand and I have to take it. He lifts me to my feet. It's only us now. This
Yeah,
is Scarecrow, huh?
yeah, Scarecrow. Yeah, yeah. Um,
What is
yeah.
do you struggle with endings, or what is the ending? I mean, I'm so impressed with you and other guests because endings, I feel are they must be difficult. No?
They shouldn't be difficult. They can be difficult, but they should be. It should. I mean, it should just happen naturally. It should be like an equation. I feel like it should just be natural, and when you've got to the end. That one is one of my favorite endings in the book, and probably one of my favorite endings ever. It just because it came together, I was like, I know what. As I wrote it, I was like, okay, I think this is the last line, and I know what it's going to be, and that's the a writer called Peter Hobbs and Sarah Hall. They talk to me. We talk about short stories sometimes, and they talk about like locking it at the end, and I think
Mhm.
that was the perfect lock in the sense that you don't have to overstate what's actually happening
Yep.
in that ending, but it says it in a line. It just encapsulates the whole thing. And yeah, Scarecrow was one of the first stories for this collection I wrote, and I think I wrote it in 2011. And I was just so happy when with the way it came together. I was surprised and happy. I was like, 'cause it was my first venture into I'm going to start trying to write some speculative science fiction, and blend it, make it really dark and a little bit of a horror tinge to it. And yeah, I felt that was a really good result, and that emboldened me to be like, okay, I'm going to try and write some more of these. Uh, but yeah, it was a really good experiment, that one.
That's interesting. That is interesting. I picked that. I felt also the end. I mean, they're all good, but this end is just like you said. There's a subtlety to it. You get the relationship between just these 3 4 sentences. You get the power dynamic and everything. I mean, it's just it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad you feel that way because it's funny now that the collection's out, even though that was a story that really, like when I would read it and stuff, people would respond really well to it and I got really good feedback. Now it's not talked about so much within the collection. And so I'm glad you picked up on that because it's one of my
I'm
favorites.
picking up all of this stuff. Nomo that you were unsure about, Scarecrow.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
complete
just my
opposite.
astral body is floating here and picking up all these things. Okay. Do a quick elevator pitch about the not pitch, but just like a summary of A River Called Time because we're going back and forth on this.
Sure,
And
sure.
I think because we're in and while you're doing this, please the camera zoom around a little bit, maybe tilt it downwards because we're sitting on top of we're kind of floating like bodies, disembodied bodies, or souls rather, and we're looking down on a vast landscape of big skyscrapers, but also kind of dilapidated areas. What is A River Called Time about?
Yeah, A Biblical Time is set in a parallel world where slavery and colonization never happened. And because slavery and colonization never happened, then African cosmology has become the dominant religion. So that's kind of my two-line pitch.
Hmm.
And yeah, so like ancestral worship and veneration and the chakras and astral projection, all of these things are just normal and commonplace. And there's my protagonist is someone, like machines control basically how people actually project. They get into pods and they have like assisted uh, uh, astral projections. And my protagonist has somehow finds that he can spontaneously astral project, which means he can move through time, but he doesn't move through time forwards and backwards. He moves sideways to different parallels of himself, different versions of himself. So that's kind of the story. The funny thing is
Does he
about
know that that he's in a different time? Does he remember the other time?
no, this is the difference between my time travel thing. There's only one person who did that as well, and it's a book called Version Control. Or well, not one person. There must be a hell of a lot of people who did it, but
Version control. I
only
never
one I
heard of that.
yeah, yeah. Dexter Palmer, Version Control, where in he has the same thing in his time travel that you can't remember the other people that you were in the different timelines. People who usually do time travel, as we know, that you're the one person in different times. Marcus, my main character, every time he goes to a different parallel, he exists in that parallel as if he was always that person. So he has all the memories and all the relationships and everything, and he never remembers the other parallels. Although sometimes he has bouts of deja vu, and when he has deja vu, they're basically flashes. The reader will know that they're flashes of things that have happened or that will happen in the other parallels that he's going to visit. So yeah,
Wow.
but Jax, I got to tell you that I was walking through Stratford Shopping Centre the other day, and I saw a
Through where?
meditation
What? Through
pod.
what?
Stratford Shopping Centre in Forest Gate by the Olympic Village in London. It's just across the road from Westfields and the huge Olympic Village. There's an old shopping centre, and they actually had meditation pods. I suddenly turned around and there's like a group of maybe two or three, and it said on the side of the meditation pods. And I was
Wow.
like, are you kidding me? And I was going somewhere. I had to go to a meeting, so I couldn't stop and take a picture. But I really hope they're still there because I need to take a picture of those. Yeah,
This is unbelievable. I don't know
yeah.
how many. I mean, maybe well, the book that traveled. Maybe I mean, tech people read books and then they implement.
It was so bizarre. It's like sitting in the middle of Stratford. And there's also a story in Link in Cosmogramma, uh,
Ah, yeah.
called that story, sorry, called Link in Cosmogramma, that takes place in Stratford Shopping Centre. And there was something else there in that exact same spot where the meditation pods are. And that has got a pivotal scene in that story. So it's even more bizarre because they moved those things that were there before and they put the meditation pods there instead. It's
Okay,
crazy.
you don't want to spoil that, I guess.
I mean,
No, we don't want to. No, we don't want to. We don't
you
want to
don't want to
spoil
know.
stuff.
Okay,
No,
cool.
no, no, no.
Okay, yeah, I could. I don't think it'd be that much of a spoiler if I told you what the object was, but yeah, it'd be good for you to read the story and maybe get it because you'll notice it's there in the story if you ever read Link. It's a huge part of the story.
I want people to read that, but I also want people to choose. Well, actually, they should get all the books. But they also now hopefully get understand that A River Called Time is a sprawling those are the kind. I mean, I'm a big novel guy. I'm that kind of door stopper kind of guy,
Right.
where I want to be immersed in a world for a long time.
Hmm.
I appreciate short stories, but if you put a gun to my head and said you got to only choose one, I will always choose the big sprawling narratives. The form of the novel to me is not dead. It's very much alive. There are
Hmm.
practitioners. Matter of fact, next week we also have an amazing guest. But what do you think? I mean, do you have the kind of discussion with your fellow writers about like I don't know. I have no idea what you guys talk about, like the slow demise of the novel. Does it make sense to even do that? Do people have attentions, but do people really read? Is it important? Is it a dying form? Let's all go short stories or whatnot. What's what's the what's the temperature in that world?
I don't think that I could ever be friends with someone who would want to have a conversation about the death of the novel to me. Like I could a really serious like, oh, could it really propose to me that the novel is dead? Like another author, I mean, like I could have this conversation with you, but another author who's actually really seriously trying to have a conversation with me about the death of the novel, I would think that is quite bizarre. And also, I don't. It's funny, like maybe some people do, but the guys that I know that are writers in all senses, like screenwriters and whatever, we generally don't talk about like, oh, what are you working on? And I'm doing this and whatever. Like we don't have it tends to be our little thing that we do, even though we talk about everything else, we kind of leave that alone a little bit. And it's always a kind of like a great sign if we don't talk about work, which is not to say that we don't send work to each other to read. You know, I will do that a
Hmm.
lot. And I just sent, I was talking with Derek Awusu and I was like, look, I've just read this essay. Can you have a look at it? You know, and he was like, sure. So we do that, but we don't generally talk about the mechanics in a
Hmm.
sense. And I don't know, I just find those kind of like pseudo philosophical questions
Yeah.
very, very, very dull because and not because it's not a valid subject or anything, but
Well, I imagine you guys almost like philosophers. You're sitting in the cafe, you're smoking
yeah,
cigars,
yeah,
and you're,
yeah,
the novel is dead. No, dear sir, it is not, say I.
yeah. I just think that's
So
such.
that's not what you guys are doing.
Well, it's not what I'm doing. I'm sure there's people out
Maybe
there
the
who
other
are doing
guys are.
that stuff.
After
Yeah,
after they
yeah,
talk with you, they go, "Okay, we're gonna go somewhere, but you're not invited."
yeah. I'm
To-
definitely not invited to that party, man. Because like they must think I'm really boring because I will not have that conversation because I'm just like I wouldn't be engaged in an art form that I thought was dead or dying. I just wouldn't do that, you know. So I think it's very much alive, like you said. I think there's great stuff out there. I don't even
yeah.
actually want to make a choice between novels, short stories, theatre, screenplay, TV. You know, this whole thing, this like in film at the minute, this Marvel bashing stupidness that's going on. You know, I just don't
Right.
understand it at all. Like, just leave people alone, man. Like, people like different things. It's all right, you know. Like,
It's part of the outrage thing. It's also really unnuanced. Although I have to
yeah,
say I have not watched a single Marvel movie, and just because not because I feel I need to bash it, but I have
sure,
the days are
make
limited,
time.
and
Yeah,
I have a different area of interest. I find the bashing going back and forth childish, but equally, Courttia, real quick, I find it also what I find myself on the other end where I say things like, well, I rather read a book. And I don't say it that way. I mean, the way when I say I
yeah.
rather read a book, that does
Oh,
come
I lost you
across
there.
elitist. Can you still hear
Yeah,
me?
I
So,
don't. Yeah,
so
yeah, I
I
can. I
get
heard. I heard
I
the
had
end. Yeah,
this. What happened to me a few times is that I've been called a snob or elitist because I point out that I like to read books and that I'm not up to speed on what's on Netflix or whatever what the latest Marvel movie is.
mm-hmm.
And believe me, I'm not going around like when somebody says, "Oh, did you see Endgame or whatever that is?" And I don't respond with like, "No," because I'm not 12. I'm not like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
respond to
Well,
like, no, I'm sorry, I haven't seen that because really you haven't seen this Netflix show. And say, no, but I I'm reading. I have limited time, so I'm spending my
Yeah, yeah,
extra
yeah.
time reading. And then people roll their eyes at me. I find that equally
No,
offensive.
it's equal. It's equally offensive. I mean, everyone should just get into what they're getting into. I mean, I just think that on both sides of the fence, like, can we just like leave people alone, and let people enjoy the art forms that they want to enjoy? No art form, I don't think you might have a preference or something like that, and that's fine. But there's an art to all of it. It's all art, it's all expression. It's just like different forms of expression. And
Exactly,
I,
Courttia.
I
Some
watch.
art is for 12-year-olds. Sorry, I'm sorry. I had to do that. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool, but like I, I, I'm the kind of person that like I love like a good art house movie, but sometimes I want to watch a Marvel movie, man. You know what I mean? And like I actually for me, providing the stories are well told, I don't get the difference. Like for me, a really brilliantly told Marvel movie is just like is art, to say that that's not creative is a real disservice, man. To not just to the people who create it, but to loads of people who watch them. And I've sat my way through a ton of boring art house movies too. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
poorly done and all of this. So it's not the genre doesn't make it better. I don't.
That is a good point, the genre. Actually, the critique, and this would be another show. Maybe I'll put something together because my critique is much more of sort of again, here we go again with sort of a corporate sort of message that is sort of seeping through a lot of these movies. That's the much bigger problem that I
That
have.
is a
It,
problem. That is a problem.
right?
That's
Because
a
they
different
all
conversation.
serve to kind of perpetuate sort of
Yeah.
a quote unquote normality, and they're sort of pseudo critical about stuff, and they just it's all at the end, it's all good, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's
That's a
not.
different
And
problem. And the comics weren't like that. The comics were in
yeah,
opposition to that. But I have to say though, sometimes the messages that I was seeing in the films of these guys that were critiquing these films wasn't great either. You know
absolutely,
what
I
I
agree
mean? Yeah.
100%,
Yeah. There's
exactly.
a lot of stuff that I found unsettling in those movies too.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, now we got to wrap it. I apologize if I didn't get to all the comments here. There's a lot of stuff going on. Thank you guys so vibrant here, the conversation, and a big
Okay.
turnout. Really wonderful. Thank you so much, Courttia. You're keeping busy, I suppose.
Very, 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 very
Good.
busy. Yeah, yeah. Got a lot of stuff coming, and I'll let you guys know as they're coming. But it's mainly, I'm not doing much book writing at the minute. Although I think I'm going to start trying to work on a book of essays. I think that might be my next thing. So in book terms, but I'm working on a couple of features and TV. It's probably coming out next year. So yeah, I'll keep you posted. Yeah.
I'm always impressed when people you mentioned earlier the solitude, which is so important for writers. I'm impressed when people can also shut themselves off of this relentless social media thing. I mean, I temporarily quit Twitter over the summer. It was incredibly refreshing. It's
Yeah.
also for my job somewhat required to be present there, but
Mm,
it's toxic and it's a waste of time for the most part.
yeah.
I'm speaking to China Mieville's
Mm,
assistant at the moment, and it's amazing. And she's super nice, and so her job is to to be not keeping his solitude intact basically. And so
yeah.
we're
Yeah.
talking about a date, but um I don't know, maybe very quickly a question. Do you have uh, how do you manage I mean, I guess your family supporting, but do you have a room? Is there like an unwritten law of dad is in there? I don't know how old your kids are, but that can
Yeah.
be very challenging when you have like younger kids, and you have to kind of enforce
Yeah.
that rule of
No, I
having like
mean,
a bunch of hours.
my son's 14 and my daughter's 7, and their whole lives, this is what me and their mum does. So they're actually really good at just leaving us alone sometimes. Sometimes I have to, put on a nature program for my daughter. Sometimes I say I'm just going to be on a call. I'm just going to be writing for a bit, like during the pandemic and when there are inset days and stuff. But mainly, I think they're really good at just like being like, okay, they're working. Let's just leave them alone for a
They're
little bit.
used to it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
No, that's
yes.
great. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna wrap it. We're out of time. 2 minutes. Kitten Duo, thank you so much for on YouTube, all the YouTube watchers, but especially Kitten. We love you, Kitten. We hope you come in world at one of these days. And oh, now we got a spammer. Just the last 2 minutes. That's awesome. Uh, Kitten says, thank you, Courttia Newland. Great show. Loved your reading. And Gapno says, thanks for coming, Courttia. Really loved the River Call Time, which I found through the Second Life Book Club
Oh,
last time you were
brilliant.
here.
Thank
Look
you.
at that. If you would like to support this show, there's a tip jar up front here. You can tip the tip jar with your loose Linden dollars that are sloshing around your pants. I don't even know if that word is correct, but English is not my first language. If you like to support the show in other ways, you can consider a membership of the YouTube channel. You can do super chats, but on the other hand, YouTube, by the way, takes 30% cut of the super chat, which is absolutely ridiculous. So you can also go to paypal.me/SL Book Club and you can donate there if you like. This is a volunteer effort. We get sponsorship from Linden Lab. They give us these islands for free, which is cool. But there is no revenue whatsoever, and that's also not the intention behind this. This is an effort to make people read more. This is my very nefarious
Mm.
project here, Courttia. I know it's really kind of
Yeah, yeah,
evil, the
yeah,
evil
yeah.
plan.
Dastardly.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but yeah, so we put money into this to bring you a great experience. So if you want to tip, that's awesome. Thank you. Second Life Book Club every Wednesday, 12 o'clock. slbookclub at Draxtor.com is the email. The show is produced by Isabel Sharon, Shiloh the Super Gecko, and myself. I apologize for little glitches. Courttia's awesome glasses were not visible
Oh,
in
really?
the last. Well,
Oh,
yeah, that's the virtual world.
damn.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse has no legs. We have no glasses. No big deal. Location manager, master builder, especially this build, Ruby. Ruby Geek is not with us. Ruby, really awesome job. Avatars are made by Ruby and Bespoke Caravan. Speaking of Bespoke Caravan is one of the sponsors of this program. So check out. I'm looking for the ad. Where is the ad? Here we go. Bespoke Caravan makes fantastical avatars. Absolutely amazing. Check them out. They're on SL Marketplace. And the other sponsor for this show is The Black Forest by Arden Schwartzman, making low land impact, high detail board games. Awesome board games. Some of the board games that some of the board maybe have different names for copyright reasons, but some of the board games are designed by Arden himself. They're absolutely fantastic. Now, next week, and now I don't know if I actually have that image here. Next week is going to be the America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots. And I wore that robe earlier. Now, this is an amazing book. It's an immersive experience. And if you missed that show, I cannot help you. Trust me, this is more than a book. It's an entire world that you step into. America and the Cult of the Cactus Boots, a diagnostic. Will have Philip Friedenberg, Jeff Walton, the illustrator, and Rick Harsh, the publisher. An absolutely sensational book that was published last year, and that concludes the show. You have to look at the calendar. I don't have the image ready yet, but the calendar has a little preview of the avatars and the setting. Thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. Really appreciate it.